Hello everyone, this is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. We're going to dig into an article that is simple on the surface, but it touches on some interesting fault lines in the culture and in politics. So let's dig in. From Arizona's Family, Channel 3, local outlet, I'm assuming of some flavor, in Arizona. Kind of caught my eye because I used to live there. Headline: Arizona GOP lawmaker may have violated the state's revenge porn law by tweeting X-rated pictures of Hunter Biden. This is certainly spicy and salacious. You find some good stuff with state reps and state senators. It's big enough to have a profile, but it's a small enough position that you get some quirky people that get elected. So this relates to State Senator Wendy Rogers, who got herself in trouble because she tweeted out something about Hunter Biden that included some attached media that was, let's go with gross. If you're lucky enough to have been spared the sight of Hunter Biden naked, good job. Keep making good life choices. They are freely available on the internet to find if you're curious. Senator Wendy Rogers sponsored a bill earlier this year in an attempt to block minors from watching online pornography. And she retweeted a video that contained X-rated images of Hunter Biden to her more than 300,000 followers on Twitter. This social media platform allows adolescents from as young as 13 years old to sign up without age restrictions and allows adult content to be posted. If you have a teenager, they can find porn, whether it's on Twitter or somewhere else. It's out there. It is just a fact of life in the modern internet. One of the interesting things about this article is that they're not making a moral case, they're making a legal case, which means that what they're trying to do is basically paint a picture that say, hey, if we construe facts in a certain way, we can put together a way where an Arizona state senator? Yeah, state senator, Republican state senator, got herself in trouble. So we can get after her. I don't know, it's threadbare, but let's look at it. Let's give them the chance to make their case, and then let's see where it goes. So they're saying she distributed X-rated pictures of Hunter Biden on Twitter. She has 300,000 followers. It's possible that some of her followers are minors because Twitter allows minors and doesn't do age restriction based on account status or age of the user and allows adult content. Theoretically, she has distributed pornography to minors. That'll become important here in a second. Since this happened, she has removed the video from her thread, and State Senate President Warren Peterson released a statement calling Rogers' retweet a mistake. She didn't realize those images were in that video until it was brought to her attention, and she immediately removed the video from her feed. So what it sounds like is she retweeted with some attached media, and the media was a video. And if you play through the video at a part of the video, which I haven't seen, if you play through part of the video, eventually it shows you nude pictures of Hunter Biden. That's actually pretty plausible. Hey, you're on Twitter, it comes up on your phone, you think, hey, let's make fun of Hunter Biden, or let's get after, a political opponent, take your pick. Newsworthy, perfect. Let me share this out on Twitter. And a retweet. Button, done. It's very easy to do. Probably never even watched the video before she retweeted it, which foolish, but it happens. Now, this is where, again, the reporter's trying really hard to gather the elements of the crime. Removing the offensive video, which Arizona's Family is prohibited from airing on TV and online, so their outlet, may not be enough to keep her out of legal trouble, according to one local attorney. It's not a defense if she later took them down, which it appears she has done, Tom Ryan, a Valley lawyer, said, any more than it would be a defense if you robbed a Circle K and later gave the money back. You don't get to wipe out the robbery. Sometimes I really like digging into these local stories, local outlets, because you just get quirkier, less polished behavior. This is a sign he's a bad lawyer. We're going to talk about why here in a second. Ryan said he thinks Rogers violated Arizona's so-called revenge porn law, which makes intentionally disclosing a sexual picture of anyone without consent a criminal offense. Let me take a look at what that's saying. What they're saying is the law that gets her in legal trouble has several elements to the crime, as described by the reporter. Again, the reporter's trying to make this case that she could be in legal trouble. It's a way of making a story. So let's take his telling of the story as strongly as you'd like it. I haven't read this law. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not a lawyer. I just pay attention. Quote, intentionally disclosing a sexual picture of anyone without consent, a criminal offense. Intention. Some laws require intent, some laws don't. If you steal funds from your business that you work for, that's embezzling. If you intentionally take them and maybe falsify records or in some other way, you're trying to, they can prove that you took actions to accomplish the crime, cover up the crime, etc. On the other hand, if you accidentally mishandle funds and no intent can be proven, then if intent is part of the crime, you can't convict. There's another example that's a little more pertinent to kind of the political sphere, and that is relating to the handling of classified documents. One of the things that drove people up in arms, and one of the things that still sticks in my craw, is Hillary Clinton mishandled classified documents on a grand scale, on an industrial scale. For anyone who's looked at the facts of the case, it shows a political actor who believes that she is above the law. She's acting as though the law does not apply to her at all. Again, ignorance is no excuse, especially when you're Secretary of State. She mishandled classified documents, personally and through delegating to her subordinates. No one actually contests that. That's provable. That happened. However, I was trying to do this before that super loud fridge kicked on, but whatever, we'll finish up. However, when it came right down to it, the FBI said she didn't mean to, so we're not going to charge her. Except that in the law, it's not an intent crime. If I accidentally take a classified piece of paper, stick it in my briefcase, and walk out to the parking lot, I've broken that law. Intent is not required for that law. Other laws do require intent. Anyway, not a great explanation, but hopefully it kind of lays things out. Let's go back to this Tom Ryan, local valley lawyer. He says, it's not a defense if she later took them down. Anymore, it would be a defense if you robbed a Circle K and later gave the money back. You don't get to wipe out the robbery. Yes, because you intended to rob the store. You used violence, force, threat of force, intimidation, whatever, and you took something that didn't belong to you, and then later you give the money back. That's not the parallel. A good lawyer is able to draw a parallel between two circumstances that is actually valid. He's making the case that her actions, she's claiming were accidental, and that she's deleted it, cleaned up the mistake. I'm belaboring the point. Let's say it very simply. They're making a mountain out of a molehill, and it's a little bit silly. But the interesting thing is, they want to make trouble for this Republican politician. They want to make her look like a hypocrite, whatever. Anyway, in addition to the idea that this action requires intent based on the law, it also requires disclosure. So if you're not the first person to share an image, you're not disclosing it. If you are sharing something that is broadly available and you're talking about it, you're not disclosing it. So again, that's another thing that would disqualify you that would make it difficult to bring charges under this statute. Other lawyers who were contacted but unavailable for on-camera interviews said it would be a tough case to prosecute. Given the Bidens are a high-profile family, that is another point. As a public figure, you lose a little bit of your privacy, and because explicit images of Hunter Biden are common on social media platforms. Like I said, not a disclosure. Apparently, she got in some controversy last year. There was a pre-recorded speech she made for a white nationalist conference. Interesting that they don't identify what conference, where, why, whatever. During that speech, she called for people she viewed as enemies to be hanged from the gallows. Attribution without detail makes me very nervous. When you're looking at reporting, it's very easy for a reporter to frame a reference in a certain way, to choose their words very carefully, to leave an impression without saying anything actionable. I don't know anything about this woman beyond what I've read in this article. She's a very minor player. I used to live in Arizona. I'm fairly aware of the political scene. I've never heard of this person before. But top article on Reddit, so we're talking about it. After talking about a very thin possibility that she could be prosecuted under an Arizona state law. Very thin, almost silly, almost insulting how thin it is. You toss in a paragraph as a reporter, basically just to smear reputation. So I'm going to read this paragraph again because it's interesting what it says and how it says it. Rogers is no stranger to controversy. That's an opinion statement from the reporter. Last year, she was censured by the state Senate following a pre-recorded speech she made for a white nationalist conference. When, where, who? There's no details, there's no link, there's no attribution. What did she say in there? Give us a quote. Give us the context of the remarks. Give us the audience it was given to. What organization? Was she paid to be there? Is she a member of this organization? Is it an organized body that she's speaking to? A pre-recorded speech. It's almost useless to speculate. We have nothing to hook. I don't even have anything to research on this because they gave literally no specific attribution. I have nowhere to start if I want to research this. And the reporter, while referencing it, doesn't give us any easy way of going, and which makes me leery. It makes me suspicious, frankly speaking. What's interesting as well is white nationalist conference is how it's described. All lowercase, generic term, white nationalist. That could mean almost anything. It is one of the common smear tactics by the left to call people they don't agree with white nationalists. The specific term that is used in politically correct speech continues to evolve over time, but the general principle is, I want to call you names to make you feel ashamed, to make other people shun you, to discredit you so that I get my way and I don't have to argue with you. Often, over the years, the term is, racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, Islamophobia, you name it. These days, it's white nationalists. Because after all, you should punch Nazis in the face. And somehow, I'm going to take 2 seconds and just break something apart. The left wants you to associate the words white nationalist with Nazi. They want to do that because everyone agrees Nazis are bad. You have Nazi, bad guys. Nazis were national socialists. To differentiate them from communists, from Russians, who were global communists, global socialists. The USSR, the United Soviet Socialist Republics. The USSR was an entity that basically said, our philosophy is socialist, but we believe that the whole globe is going to unite in this utopian socialist order. And the Nazis said, no, Germans are special. Germans are fantastic. They are the fatherland and they are, we're the superior race and blah, 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 blah. We are socialist, but it's a national socialism. Hilarious to me that the left wants to take the nationalist part, strip it away from the context of the socialist part, and say nationalism is bad, but ignore the other stuff that also made, that's social. We like socialist stuff. We like Bernie Sanders. He's cute and old and kind of quirky. But nationalists, oh, that's bad. Oh, and white nationalists. Hey, Nazis were mostly white. Perfect. Hey, we've got bad white guys. We've got nationalists. We've got white nationalists. Great label. Let's use that to make fun of people, to tear them down, to insult them and get them to shut up so we don't actually have to argue with them. Then to close the paragraph, he says, during that speech, she called for people she viewed as enemies to be hanged from the gallows. What does that mean? Enemies of who? Her enemies? Our country's enemies? Who? I mean, from the way this is attributed, enemies of the white race? Enemies of white America? I mean, what are we talking about here? This could mean anything from her standing there railing in front of freaking Nazi flags saying, all of those who stand against the pride and the supremacy of the white race as it rules America, because America is a white country, everyone who opposes that are my enemies and they should be hanged from the gallows. That's a problem. That's terrible speech, terrible ideas. That's enough to get you probably impeached and kicked out of the Senate. That's not acceptable in a civil society. Except if she had said that, they would have quoted it. They would have had it on video. They would have played it on a loop. It would have been fantastic PR for the left. But they don't quote. They don't show the video. It's a pre-recorded speech that they're referencing, which means including an embedded link to the video would be super easy to do. They're referencing, they're attributing to her that she called for people she viewed as enemies to be hanged from the gallows. But they don't give the exact quote. They don't even talk about where it is. There's 2 videos linked in the article on either side of this paragraph. Neither one of them reference what the paragraph talks about. They talk about other controversial things she said. Apparently she likes to stir the pot a little bit. What do we do when we live in a world where the media can just saturate the culture with its message? It's distressing. What I think is particularly interesting, quick aside, I watched both of the videos linked to make sure that there wasn't any additional details on this rather salacious claim about saying she wants enemies hanged from the gallows, okay? At the end of it, this is just a perfect example of framing without context, using the truth to lie. Let's call it that, yeah, using the truth to lie. They have a tweet that they have professionally cropped and formatted really nicely so it fills the whole screen, and it says, "The House GOP leadership has enabled white nationalism, white supremacy, and anti-Semitism. History has taught us that what begins with words ends in far worse. GOP leaders must renounce and reject these views and those who hold them." They say, as they're referencing this quote,
Been censured once this session for threatening colleagues. Now, the debate over enabling and encouraging white supremacy is reaching the highest levels of the Republican Party today.
when they say it's reaching the highest levels of the Republican Party, they quote Liz Cheney. Nobody in the Republican Party follows Liz Cheney. No one takes her seriously. Is she out of power? So this article was published today or yesterday. Who knows when this video is put together, but the tweet from Liz Cheney is from May of 2022. I'm pretty sure she lost her re-election bid in 2022. I don't think she's even in office. But to support the idea that somehow this state Republican senator is falling out of favor, even with the highest realms of the Republican Party, the highest levels of the Republican Party, they quote Liz Cheney. But without context, you think, I've heard Cheney, if you're a real low information voter, I've heard that name. Oh yeah, that was a vice president. Yeah, that's a Republican thing. Okay. So yeah, someone in the Republican Party said, hey, this is no good. That would make it even further out of context, because then you would be taking a quote from Liz Cheney that clearly was referencing something else, because Wendy Rogers isn't in the quote at all. The quote from Liz Cheney is, "The House GOP leadership has enabled white nationalism, white supremacy, and anti-Semitism. History has taught us that what begins with words ends in far worse. GOP leaders must renounce and reject these views and those who hold them." That has nothing to do with Wendy Rogers. She's not mentioned there at all, other than white supremacy and white nationalism. And since she was speaking at some kind of unnamed white nationalist conference, well, then she must be a white nationalist. And white nationalism is presumptively bad. And so that makes her bad. And so that makes anyone who condemns white nationalism, it's really condemning Wendy Rogers. Like, there's all these, do you see the kind of tenuous links that are kind of put together here? So I'll give them their final word and then we're going to wrap this up. This year, Rogers pushed for legislation that would bar anyone from accessing online pornography unless they were at least 18 years old. During a committee hearing, Rogers expressed her concerns about the ease with which minors can access pornography, calling it a scourge that is affecting impressionable minds. Rogers was unavailable for comment before publishing this story. Now, here's what's interesting. In these links that this outlet has put on, it shows many where this outlet has covered this politician. In every single video, she hasn't commented. She has not responded to them at all. So my question for you is, what are the odds that a state senator, who is being covered by a local state-based news outlet, is never reachable for comment? What are the odds that they're genuinely reaching out for comment consistently in good faith, and somehow they can just never manage to connect with her or her office or her press secretary at all? She's just unreachable. And if she's unreachable, she doesn't get a voice. They get to just say whatever they want about her. Nothing gets refuted. Too clever by half, we face a devious and pervasive threat. I confess I don't know how to fix it. I don't see how to fix it. But I've solved tricky problems before. Who knows? Maybe something will come to me. Maybe I'll get a little dose of inspiration. We'll see. Regardless, that's what we're trying to do here. Is trying to figure this out, find a way to make it better. And in the meantime, try and be as independent and critically minded as possible. That's my Reddit rant for today. Good luck out there.